this breaking news story. 14 suspects arrested in connection with the gang rape of 8 women in Krugersdorp have had their charges withdrawn. Let us now talk to NPA spokesperson Phindi Mjolondwana. Phindi, good afternoon to you. Good morning, rather. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Can you confirm indeed that the charges have been dropped against the 14 suspects?
Morning, Naledi, and morning to your viewers. Indeed, yes, we can confirm as the NPA that we took a decision to withdraw the charges of rape, sexual assault, and robbery with aggravating circumstances against all 14 accused.
Can I just ask, if your phone is on speaker, Phindi, please can you take it off speaker just to try and get a clearer line? What is the reason as to why the charges have been withdrawn?
Well, the decision is informed by the outcome of the DNA results, which excluded all of the accused persons. And following that outcome, we then called in the complainants and had a consultation with them. And also that consultation process made it apparent to us that we cannot continue with the prosecution.
Hi, Ms. Mjolondwana, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with your line. Is your phone on speaker?
No, it's not on speaker.
Okay, all right. So let's talk a little bit about whether or not how many people rather in total have been linked to the Krugersdorp rape via DNA so far then.
As I've indicated, that all accused persons were excluded by the outcome of the DNA, so none of them were linked via DNA.
What does this mean then for the victims who essentially want justice? I mean, what's the next step then for the NPA to try and find the perpetrators?
Well, we remain committed in our responsibility to deliver justice to the complainants in this case, and hence we will continue as the NPA to guide the investigation process.
Have you spoken at all to the victims? I mean, has there been a response or any sort of communication to the victims that the alleged perpetrators or now suspects or former suspects have had their cases withdrawn?
Indeed, yes. We have delivered the message to the complainants, as I've indicated that we also had a consultation process with all of the complainants.
You've talked about the NPA being committed to bringing justice to the victims of the Krugersdorp gang rape. What is the next process? You've talked about the commitment. What is the next step for the NPA?
Well, as I've indicated, the investigation process continues. So it is a setback that we must admit. But however, as I've indicated, that we'll continue as the NPA to guide the investigation. All accused persons are now facing only the charge of contravention of the Immigration Act, and are back in court on the 1st of November.
What happens to these 14 suspects now for the charges that they are still facing, especially where bail is concerned? Are we talking about free men essentially that are going back into the communities?
No, remember that we are alleging that they are illegal in the country and therefore they remain in custody. As I've indicated that they'll be back in court on the 1st of November. They were given an opportunity to consult with Legal Aid South Africa that is representing them in that case. Okay.
And just what the next step then is going to be with regards to then processing the charges that they are still facing, where it is the contravention of their status in the country?
I beg yours?
What is the next step in processing them with the charges that they are facing?
They will go through the court process. If either they'll decide that they want to plead guilty, then we go into the sentencing proceedings, and it is up to the court's discretion on the suitable sentence that the court will be fit to impose. If they're not pleading guilty, then which means the matter must go to trial, and we must then prove our cases.
What do you say to the view that perhaps South Africans really should be concerned about law enforcement in the country, whether it be our investigators or even the capabilities of the NPA, when 8 women were violently gang raped at a Krugersdorp mine dump, and now there are no suspects facing charges for that brutal gang rape.
Well, remember that at the inception of the case, we established prospects of a successful prosecution. However, when we received the outcome of the DNA and consulted with the complainants, then we had a totally different picture. Hence, we came to the conclusion to withdraw the case. However, it's not the end of the case. We remain committed in the investigation process that must continue, and with us as the NPA playing the role of guiding the investigation.
Have the victims seen the suspects, or now no longer suspects, particularly where the rape is concerned? Have they seen their faces? I mean, has there been a conversation around whether or not the victims themselves are able to confirm if these men were the perpetrators?
Well, the only time they would have seen the accused persons would be during the identity parade that was held. Remember that at the time when they came to court for the first time, there was an identity parade that was conducted, and some of them had pointed out some of the accused persons. Hence, the matter was then enrolled. But upon consultation, that is when it became apparent to us that we cannot continue, as now the complainants were saying that they made a mistake at the ID parade process.